I never thought I would find myself in this position. My name is Mark, and for the past 5 years, I believed I had a loving marriage with my wife, Sarah. We met in college, bonded over our shared interests in gaming and pop culture, and built a life together that felt pretty solid. But like a house of cards, I soon learned that it was all too easy for it to come crashing down. It started with little things, Sarah's late nights, the way she would smile at her phone, giggling quietly while I sat on the couch, trying to get through another episode of some old show we used to watch together. I shrugged it off initially. Maybe she was just chatting with friends about the latest game or some new series. But then I noticed changes in her behavior. The late-night gaming sessions turned into content creation, chats with some online streamer named Tyler, whom I had never heard of before. I didn't think much of it at first, but there was an edge to her excitement that I hadn't seen in a while. She became distant, and I began to feel like an outsider in my own home. Conversations dwindled and the intimacy we once shared faded. It was as if the emotional connection we had was being siphoned off and redirected toward someone else. The truth hit me one fateful evening. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner when I noticed Sarah's phone light up on the counter. It was a message that I couldn't help but glance at. "Can't wait to see you again tonight, babe. You make me feel alive." My heart dropped. It was a simple message, but it spoke volumes. A pit opened in my stomach as I felt reality twist and turn into something dark and painful. I confronted her immediately. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I demanded answers. "Sarah, who the hell is this babe you're texting?" Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. Instead, she launched into a barrage of excuses, claiming it was just a harmless crush and that nothing physical had happened. But her eyes told a different story. They darted around like she was searching for a way out of the conversation. "You're overreacting, Mark. You know how much I love you. I just got carried away with the drama of it all," she said, trying to brush it off, but the sharpness of her words was like a knife in my heart. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to cling to the hope that this was just a misunderstanding, but the evidence was right there in front of me, her phone, her lies, and the emptiness in her eyes. Each excuse she presented felt like another layer of betrayal. I had given her everything, my heart, my loyalty, my trust, and she was throwing it all away for some online fantasy. I struggled to process the emotions swirling inside me. Anger surged within, but sadness quickly followed, wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. I felt hollow, like a ghost in my own home. The following days were a blur of confusion and heartache. I walked around in a daze, trapped in a cycle of grief and rage. My mind was a battlefield, torn between wanting to fight for my marriage and the overwhelming desire to cut her out of my life altogether. I felt lost, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, not knowing whether to jump or step back. Eventually, I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this hell. I needed to find a resolution, a way to reclaim my life and my sanity. But how? Did I confront her further? Did I give her another chance? Or did I take the drastic step of ending things? The weight of betrayal hung heavy on my heart, and I knew I had to act, but I was unsure how to proceed without losing myself in the process. As I sat alone in our living room, staring at the empty space where she used to sit, I made a choice. I would make it my mission to ensure she never watched Tyler again. I might not be able to control her feelings, but I could control her access to the things that fueled the affair. I felt a fire ignite within me, a resolve to take action, to reclaim my narrative. This was just the beginning of a journey I never wanted to take, but I was determined to see it through, to find peace in the chaos. And perhaps in the end I could rise from the ashes of this betrayal stronger than before. After that chaotic confrontation, I spent a lot of time grappling with my emotions. I couldn't shake off the sense of betrayal, nor could I ignore the fiery desire for revenge that had sparked inside me. I wanted to hurt Sarah like she had hurt me, but I also wanted to regain control over my life. I began to think about how I could make her understand the consequences of her actions, particularly her obsession with this online streamer, Tyler. I spent hours researching Tyler, delving deep into the world of streaming and gaming. I wanted to know exactly what Sarah saw in him. He was charming, energetic, and had a massive following. Fans adored him, and from what I could gather, he was known for his playful banter and flirty interactions with his audience. But there was something else beneath the surface. I found forums filled with complaints about him, stories of how he had manipulated fans into thinking he was more than just a streamer. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication in discovering that he was more than just a pretty face on a screen. As the days went by, I began to formulate a plan. I meticulously documented everything I could find about Tyler, his social media accounts, his streaming platforms, the games he played, and the communities he was involved with. In my mind, I was building a case against him, a way to take him down. I didn't want to harm anyone physically, but I felt justified in wanting to disrupt his online presence and, in turn, Sarah's emotional escape route. I started with his streaming accounts. I created anonymous reports about his behavior, focusing on the inappropriate comments he made during streams and the way he interacted with fans who clearly had crushes on him. I went through his Twitch account and flagged instances where he breached community guidelines. I crafted messages that outlined his predatory behavior, framing them as genuine concerns for viewer safety. It felt good to have a direction, a way to channel my pain into something actionable. I spent countless hours watching his streams, analyzing his interactions, and picking apart every detail that could be deemed inappropriate. I felt like a detective in my own life story, piecing together clues that would ultimately lead to my revenge. But it wasn't just about Tyler, it was about Sarah too. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to realize that her actions had consequences beyond just our relationship. I wanted to take away her escape, to shatter the illusion she had created for herself. So I began to gather evidence to confront her again. I captured screenshots of Tyler's comments that crossed the line and saved clips of his live streams where he flirted with viewers. When I had enough material, I planned to throw it in her face to make her see just how pathetic her infatuation was. She needed to understand that this was no harmless crush. It was a fantasy that could only lead to heartbreak. In the meantime, my everyday life became increasingly surreal. I went through the motions of being married, sharing meals without conversation, watching her scroll through her phone and pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was boiling. My thoughts spiraled into dark fantasies of revenge. It consumed me, and I knew I needed to act before it drove me mad. One evening, after another silent dinner, I noticed Sarah's phone buzzing again. She had left it on the kitchen table, and the notification was from Tyler. I glanced at it and felt a surge of anger. It was a message that read, "Can't wait to play together tonight, babe. You know you're my favorite." My heart raced. I felt like I could explode. I didn't want to be the guy who went through his spouse's phone, but at that moment I felt justified. I picked up her phone and opened the message thread. What I found was heart-wrenching, an entire conversation filled with flirtation and banter. She was feeding into his fantasy, and in turn, he had become a source of emotional support for her that I had failed to provide. I put the phone down and walked outside, needing some fresh air to clear my mind. I paced back and forth in our backyard, the cool evening air doing little to calm the storm brewing inside me. I thought about what it would take to really hurt her, to make her feel the way I felt. The idea of taking Tyler down was a start, but I needed more. Days turned into weeks, and my plan took shape. I began to reach out to other viewers and fans of Tyler, discreetly sharing my concerns and gathering support for my cause. It was a risky move, but I felt powerful knowing I was building an army, a group of people who saw the darker side of Tyler that others seemed to ignore. I crafted a narrative that painted him as manipulative and dangerous, and slowly but surely, I began to see cracks in his armor. Meanwhile, Sarah remained blissfully unaware of what I was doing. She continued to chat with him, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I had already begun my attack. With each passing day, a twisted sense of satisfaction filled me. I was no longer just a victim. I was a player in this game, and I was ready for the next level. I was preparing for the moment when I would confront Sarah again, armed not only with evidence of her betrayal, but also a plan to wipe away the very thing that had captivated her heart. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown. Would she finally come to her senses, or would this only deepen the divide between us? Whatever the outcome, I was committed to making my mark. Revenge was a dish best served cold, and I was about to make it the main course. The days dragged on as I executed my plan with precision. I felt like a man on a mission, fueled by a mix of anger, hurt, and a twisted sense of purpose. Every late night Sarah spent in her own world, lost in Tyler's streams, only fueled my determination. I was diving deeper into the rabbit hole, and this dark path was becoming all-consuming. My strategy was simple but effective. I reached out to a few more of Tyler's viewers and began to foster a sense of community among those who shared my disdain for his behavior. We formed an online group where we shared our grievances, experiences, and evidence of his manipulative ways. It felt liberating to connect with others who had similar concerns. I wasn't alone in this fight. Together, we began to craft a series of complaints aimed at the platforms where Tyler broadcasted his content: Twitch, YouTube, and social media. The more I engaged with this group, the more emboldened I felt. Each time I clicked send on a report outlining Tyler's inappropriate behavior, I felt a small thrill of victory. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was taking action, seizing back control over my own narrative. Each complaint we filed seemed to chip away at his facade, and I started to see results. Viewership numbers began to drop, and whispers of his questionable conduct started circulating within the gaming community. While my online campaign was gaining traction, I also prepped for my next confrontation with Sarah. I knew I had to be strategic about it. I didn't want to come off as a jealous husband who couldn't handle his wife's harmless interests. Instead, I needed to present a compelling case that would make her question her choices. My plan was to confront her with the evidence I had gathered and the actions I was taking against Tyler, but I wanted to create an atmosphere where she felt the weight of her betrayal without feeling cornered. One evening, as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, I decided it was time. I had noticed she was unusually quiet, and I wondered if she felt the tension in the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to come. "Hey, Sarah," I began, trying to keep my tone casual. "Can we talk about something?" She looked up from her phone, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "What is it, Mark?" "I'm busy," but I pressed on. "I've been thinking about your streaming, about Tyler." Her expression shifted, a mix of defensiveness and guilt flickering across her face. "What about him?" she asked, trying to maintain her nonchalance, but I could sense the tension. "I've seen how much time you spend watching him," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I can't help but feel like it's affecting us. You're not the same person I married." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're being dramatic. It's just a game, Mark. I love you and you know that." "Do I?" I countered, unable to suppress the bitterness that crept into my voice. "You're emotionally invested in someone else. You're giving him the affection and attention that should be ours." Her eyebrows furrowed, and for a moment I thought I might get through to her, but then her defenses kicked back in. "You're being unreasonable. I'm just having fun. You're acting like I'm cheating on you or something. Are you?" I shot back, the words spilling from my mouth before I could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the tension in the room thickening. "Of course not," she snapped, her voice rising. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Just because I enjoy watching someone doesn't mean I want to be with them. You know I love you." I couldn't help but let out a humorless laugh. "Love? Is that what you call it? Because it looks a lot like infatuation to me." I decided it was time to drop the bomb. "I've been gathering information, Sarah, on you and Tyler. I've reported him." Her face paled, and for a moment I reveled in the shock that spread across her features. "What do you mean you reported him? You can't be serious." I pulled out my phone, showing her the complaints I had filed, the messages I had shared with other viewers. "I don't want you watching him anymore. I don't want you feeding into this fantasy you've built." She stared at the screen, her expression shifting from confusion to anger. "You can't control my life, Mark. This is ridiculous. You're being petty." "Am I?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "Because right now it feels like I'm just trying to save my marriage. You're the one who's been unfaithful emotionally. You're the one who's chosen to invest your time and energy into someone who isn't here." The anger in her eyes flickered with something else, fear perhaps, but before she could respond, I continued. "This isn't just about Tyler anymore, it's about us. I need you to understand that if you continue down this path, you're risking everything we've built together." Her anger softened, albeit momentarily. "I didn't think you'd take it this far, Mark. I thought we were better than this." "Maybe you thought wrong," I replied, my heart racing. The confrontation had reached a boiling point, and I could feel the weight of our relationship hanging by a thread. As we sat there in silence, I felt an unexpected surge of relief. I had finally confronted her, laid my cards on the table, and made my feelings known. Regardless of how this would end, I realized that it was the first step in reclaiming my power. I had turned the tables and it felt liberating. But what would happen next? Would Sarah choose to fight for our marriage, or would she continue to chase an illusion? I didn't know, but I was ready for whatever came next. The silence in the room was heavy, the kind that felt suffocating after a storm had passed but left an unsettling calm in its wake. Sarah stared at me, her eyes searching for an explanation that I wasn't sure I could give. I had laid everything bare, and now it was her turn to respond, but part of me was terrified of what she would say. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke, her voice shaky. "You've taken this too far, Mark. Reporting him, that's just vindictive." I could feel a mixture of anger and sadness bubbling inside me, but I tried to keep my composure. "I'm not being vindictive, Sarah. I'm trying to protect what we have. If you can't see that, then I don't know where we go from here." She crossed her arms defensively, clearly not ready to back down. "You think you can just bully me into stopping? It's not like I've done anything physical. I'm not cheating on you. Emotionally cheating can be just as damaging," I shot back, frustration creeping into my tone. "You've shared things with him that should be between us. You've built a connection with him that I don't understand and can't compete with." Her eyes softened for a fleeting moment, but then she leaned back, a wall coming up again. "You're overreacting. Can't we just talk about this like adults?" "We are talking about it like adults, but you're avoiding the reality of what's happening," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "You need to realize that this can't continue. I won't stand for it." I watched as Sarah's expression shifted. Her anger morphed into something vulnerable, and I could see the tears threatening to spill over. "Mark, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought it was harmless fun. I didn't think I was hurting you." "Clearly you didn't," I said, my heart softening a bit. I wanted to believe her, but the betrayal still stung. "But you have to understand that it does hurt me. It hurts more than I can express." For the first time, I saw a flicker of realization in her eyes. I didn't see it that way. I just wanted to escape, to have something that was what? I interrupted, needing her to finish the thought. "Something that was just mine, I guess," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "It feels like everything in our lives is so routine. I thought I could find a little excitement online without it meaning anything. And in doing so, you've jeopardized everything we've built. I can't let this go on, Sarah," I said, my voice firm yet tinged with sadness. "You need to make a choice. This can't be a temporary fling or fantasy for you. Either you choose this relationship or you choose him." Her face fell as she processed my words. "What are you asking me to do, Mark? I can't just cut him off completely. He's been a friend to me. It's not that simple." "It is that simple, and you need to think about what you truly want. If it's excitement you're after, then you need to find it here with me, not in someone else's virtual world," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "You have to make a commitment to this marriage, or I don't know how we can move forward." The tears brimmed in her eyes as she tried to gather her thoughts. "Maybe I haven't been fair to you. I know I've been distant, but I didn't mean for it to go this far. I promise I'll try to do better, but I need time to figure things out." "Time is something I can't give you when you're still engaging with him," I said. "You need to block him. You need to make a clear choice, me or him." A heavy silence fell between us again, and I felt both nervous and relieved. I had laid everything on the table, and now it was her turn to step up. I believed in our marriage, but I needed her to show me that she believed in it too. Finally, she nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping as if a weight had settled on her. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll block him and cut ties." My heart raced at her words. "You mean it, you'll "Do it, I will," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need you to understand that things won't change overnight. I'm going to have to work through this." "Fair enough," I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope. "But I need to see you make the effort. No more late-night chats or secretive messages." "I promise," she said, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I want to be with you, Mark. I really do. I just got lost." I reached out and wiped her tear away, letting a flicker of warmth return to my heart. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. Maybe she could return to me and we could rebuild what had been broken. I wanted to believe that we could navigate through this mess together, but deep down, I knew it would take time and effort on both our parts. As she turned away to grab her phone, I felt a surge of anxiety. Would she really follow through? Would the temptation of Tyler's attention prove too strong? I needed to trust her, but the trust had been damaged. While she was busy blocking Tyler, I could help but wonder if my actions had been justified. Had I gone too far? Had I become the villain in my own story? But I quickly pushed those thoughts aside. In this battle for my marriage, I had to remain resolute. I had taken a stand against the very things that threatened us, and I couldn't let guilt be my downfall. Once Sarah had finished blocking Tyler, we sat down together on the couch, an air of tension still lingering between us. "Can we start fresh?" she asked, her voice tentative. I nodded slowly, realizing that this was our first step toward healing. "Yes, we can start fresh, but we need to communicate. No secrets, no hiding behind screens. We need to be honest about our feelings." She nodded in agreement, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was our chance to rebuild. As we sat together in the soft glow of the living room, it felt like the weight of the world had lifted, if only a bit. We had a long road ahead, but I was willing to walk it with her, as long as we were both committed to making it work. In that moment, I realized that while my battle against Tyler had begun with revenge, it might just lead to understanding after all. But would it hold? Only time would tell. The days that followed our confrontation were a mix of cautious optimism and lingering unease. Sarah and I had made a conscious effort to reconnect and rebuild our relationship. We started to communicate more openly, sharing our thoughts and feelings instead of bottling them up. I felt a sense of hope as we slowly began to mend the rifts that had formed between us, but the specter of Tyler still loomed in the background. Sarah kept her word about blocking him, and I appreciated her effort. We started to spend more time together, watching movies, playing games, and even cooking dinner side by side. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, and I cherished every moment. But there was still a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the thought of what had happened, and I often found myself second-guessing her commitment. During one of our game nights, I caught Sarah smiling at her phone again. My heart sank at the sight. It was a wave of panic, fear, and anger that washed over me. "What's that?" I asked, my voice tinged with suspicion. She turned to me, a startled look on her face. "It's just a funny meme someone sent me." "Just a meme," I pressed, unable to hide the edge in my voice. "You haven't heard from him, have you?" "Of course not," she replied defensively, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I told you I blocked him. I haven't spoken to Tyler since our last discussion." I tried to calm myself, but the doubt gnawed at me. "I know you said you cut ties, but I just want to be sure this isn't just about him anymore, it's about us. I can't handle the thought of you slipping back into that world. I promise, Mark, I'm serious about this." She reached out, placing a hand over mine, trying to convey sincerity. "I want to fix things between us. You're my priority." For a moment, I wanted to believe her. But as the days turned into weeks, the lingering presence of Tyler didn't completely fade away. I continued to monitor Sarah's social media activity, hoping to catch any hint of him resurfacing. I knew it wasn't healthy, but the fear of losing her again consumed me. One evening, while I was scrolling through my feed, I stumbled upon a post in the gaming community that made my heart drop. It was a thread dedicated to Tyler, and people were discussing his recent rise in popularity. There were screenshots of his streams, testimonials from fans, and most alarmingly, there were comments from viewers who were calling for boycotting him due to his past behavior. It seemed like my reports had struck a chord, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. But then I noticed something else, a comment that mentioned Sarah. Did you hear about that girl who used to watch Tyler? She's been talking about him nonstop. What a shame. My stomach tightened. I wanted to dismiss it, but I felt sick at the thought of her name being dragged into this mess. I rushed to confront her. Sarah, have you been talking about Tyler? She looked taken aback. What? No, why would I do that? I saw a comment online. Somebody mentioned your name in relation to him. I faltered, unsure of how to explain my anxiety. I don't want any connection to him, and I don't want you talking about him either. It's like he's still a part of our lives. I thought we agreed to leave him behind. I haven't mentioned him, I swear. But doubt lingered in the air, and I could see it in her eyes. The tension was palpable, and I realized that she could feel my distrust. Look, I'm sorry. I'm just really trying to make sense of everything. I need to know that we're moving forward, not backward. She sighed, running her fingers through her hair. I know, but I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around you. I want to make things better too, but I can't do that if you keep bringing him up. Her frustration struck a chord within me. I was projecting my insecurities onto her, and I knew it. I took a step back and let out a shaky breath. You're right. I need to trust you. I just don't want to go through this pain again. I don't want to hurt you either, Mark. I love you, and I'm committed to making this work, but I need your trust if we're going to move forward. From that moment on, I made a conscious effort to shift my focus away from Tyler. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I wanted to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of trust and understanding. I took a deep breath and decided to let go of the constant monitoring and suspicion. We started exploring new activities together, going out more, and rekindling the romance that had slowly faded. We went on walks, tried out new restaurants, and even started playing cooperative games again, which reminded me of how we first connected. Her laughter became a balm for my racing heart, and for the first time in a long while I felt lighter. But the ghost of Tyler still lingered. One night, as we cuddled on the couch after a long day, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. Mark, I need to tell you something. My heart raced. What is it? I haven't spoken to Tyler, but I've been thinking about how all of this started, how I was feeling before the affair. My stomach dropped at the implication. What do you mean? I was feeling neglected, like I wasn't being seen or heard. It's not an excuse for what I did, but I want you to understand that I sought validation in the wrong places because I felt like I was losing you. Her honesty hit me hard. I realized I had been so focused on my feelings of betrayal that I hadn't taken the time to understand her perspective. I'm sorry if I made you feel neglected. I never intended to make you feel that way. I've been caught up in my own pain and doubts. She smiled softly, tears welling in her eyes. I don't want to keep rehashing the past. I want to work on us. I want to find ways to reconnect to make sure we both feel valued. As we talked late into the night, I felt the weight of our shared experiences beginning to lift. We were finally addressing the root of our issues, rather than just the symptoms. I could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes, and for the first time I felt a sense of mutual understanding. We both knew there would be challenges ahead. Trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight, and the scars of betrayal would take time to heal. But as I held her close, I made a silent promise to myself to focus on us, to address our needs, and to create a relationship built on love and respect. In that moment, I found a sense of peace. We were two imperfect people trying to navigate the complexities of love and commitment, and together, we could find our way back to each other. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to take that journey. With Sarah by my side, I believed we could emerge stronger than ever. In the weeks that followed our heart-to-heart conversations, Sarah and I made a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship. We turned our focus inward, working to strengthen our emotional connection. We set aside time for weekly date nights, unplugging from our devices and really engaging with each other. Whether it was cooking a new recipe together, going for long walks, or just curling up on the couch with a good book, it felt like we were rediscovering the essence of what brought us together in the first place. With each passing day, I noticed the tension between us gradually dissipating. Sarah seemed to be more present, more engaged, and I found myself feeling more secure in our relationship. The fear that had once gripped me, the anxiety about her slipping back into old habits, began to fade as her commitment to us became evident. but old habits die hard. There were moments when I felt the urge to check her phone or monitor her social media. I struggled with the shadow of insecurity that still whispered in my ear, reminding me of the betrayal I had endured. However, I was determined to fight against those impulses. I had to trust her, and more importantly, I had to trust myself to let go of the past. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching our favorite show, I noticed Sarah's phone light up with a notification. My heart raced for a moment, but instead of feeling the familiar surge of jealousy, I took a deep breath and let it go. I reminded myself that this was a new chapter for us, one that was being rewritten every day. "Hey, can I say something?" she suddenly asked, turning to me with a serious expression. "Of course," I replied, sensing that this was important. "I really appreciate how patient you've been with me. I know I've hurt you, and I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "I appreciate you saying that. It hasn't been easy, but I'm really trying to let go of the past. I believe we can heal and grow together." She nodded, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about what drew me to Tyler in the first place. I realized that I was looking for validation because I felt like I wasn't good enough. But I don't want to seek that from anyone else anymore. I want to find that realization within myself, and I want to do it with you by my side." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I understood all too well how easy it was to seek solace in external sources, especially when facing feelings of inadequacy. "You are enough, Sarah. You always have been, and I want to support you as you find that in yourself," I replied, hoping my words would reassure her. As we talked, I began to feel the weight of our shared experience morph into something lighter, something hopeful. It was impossible to ignore the scars that remained, but I was starting to understand that they could serve as reminders of our strength and resilience, rather than symbols of our failure. Not long after, we decided to take a weekend trip together, just the two of us. It was a chance to reconnect away from the distractions of daily life. We rented a cozy cabin in the woods, surrounded by nature, and took the time to unwind. We went hiking, stargazed at night, and spent hours talking by the fireplace. It felt like a reset button had been pressed, and we were rekindling the intimacy that had been missing for so long. One night, as we sat by the fire, I turned to her and said, "I know it's going to take time, but I feel like we're on the right track. I'm really proud of how far we've come." Sarah smiled at me, her eyes shining in the flickering light. "Me too. I can't believe we've made it this far after everything, but I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else." I leaned in closer, wrapping my arms around her. "We're in this together always. No more hiding, no more secrets." She nodded, resting her head against my shoulder. "Agreed. It's just you and me now." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with pain and uncertainty, but it had also allowed us to grow individually and as a couple. I recognized that we all make mistakes, but how we chose to move forward defined us. With newfound clarity, I resolved to focus on the future. I would encourage Sarah to pursue her interests openly, to find her passions outside of our relationship. And I would do the same for myself. After all, a healthy relationship thrives on the individuality of both partners. When we returned home, I found myself feeling lighter. I no longer felt the need to obsess over what had happened. Instead, I was excited to explore what lay ahead for us. We made a pact to continue working on ourselves, to celebrate our individual journeys while nurturing our relationship. Months passed, and while we faced challenges like any couple, we approached them as a team. We learned to communicate openly, to share not just our joys but also our fears without judgment. Slowly, trust was rebuilt, and the bond between us felt stronger than ever. In the end, I learned an invaluable lesson about love and relationships. It's not just about the mistakes we make, but how we choose to respond to them. Sarah and I were both imperfect people, but through honesty, vulnerability, and commitment, we were carving out a future together that was worth fighting for. And as I sat there reflecting on our journey, I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be part of our story, they were no longer the defining moments. Instead, it was the resilience, the courage to face the pain, and the unwavering support we offered each other that truly mattered. This was a new chapter for us, and I was excited to see where it would lead.